So I had a biopsy, and in December 2019, found out that I had follicular lymphoma, which is like a cancer of the blood, which was a bit of a shock. Obviously, I didn't have any symptoms other than a lump under my arm. I had no symptoms in any other way. I felt fine. Everything was good. I was training, eating, good, working.
Hi, I'm Andy, and welcome to another episode of the Rip Body podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Scott. Scott was one of the first clients I ever coached and one of the first client transformations that I ever posted online. At his leanest, he was absolutely shredded, as you can see if you go to ripbody.com/results. But that was over a decade ago. And since then, life happened, including a multi-year battle with cancer, time off from training, and a long road back to health. Now, at 50, Scott is strong again. He's back into the gym, lifting heavy, and he's built a lot of momentum. But recently, someone asked him, "Do you still work out?" And that simple comment triggered something he didn't expect. A wave of doubt, reflection, and ultimately, a renewed drive to get lean again. Now, this podcast episode is about what it takes to get back on path when you've already been through hell and back.
Honestly, I can't tell you how nice it is to put a face, well, not a face actually, to speak to you on video, because you are one of the first testimonials that I had on the website. You're one of my first clients, and we haven't spoken on video, and here we are 14 years later.
Fantastic. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. So it's been a long time coming.
You said just then that it changed everything for you. What do you mean?
I've always worked out, and I've always tried to eat well, do the right things. I think most people have an idea what that is, but until you actually are, in my case, guided down the correct path, you're guessing, and you don't really get anywhere. You 2 steps forward, 1 step back. This is good. This isn't. I look good today. Oh, no, I don't. You just scramble. Oh, I felt like I was scrambling around. I approached you, and from there, I mean, it clicked. Now, if I said that it clicked fully, I probably wouldn't be here now, but it clicked enough for me to go, oh, this is what I need to be doing. This is the route to smooth off those edges and go, right, I've got a goal and I've got an idea of how to navigate towards that goal. So the measuring of the food, the measurements and the tracking are key. And since then, like 14 years ago, as you said, that's what I've tried to do. Nearly all of those 14 years have been based around that type of plan.
Now, you'd already built yourself up an incredible physical base. And when you cut down to, it was from about 90, in fact, I've got the numbers here. It was from 200 pounds to 188 pounds. So that's 91 kilos for those who use kilos to about 85. And you were standing 6'1". Well, sorry, I assume you still are. Although you're seated, so it could be confusing. So you were absolutely shredded, veins in your lower abs, 85.5 kilos or 188 pounds at 6'1". So you looked incredible. So you'd obviously trained and built yourself up a really good base. So obviously that worked. So what is it for you that you felt wasn't working that made the difference?
Well, I think those ab veins came from when I did some work with you. That wasn't me.
Okay.
So, I don't really know. I got into fantastic shape. Those photos from that time are really, really good photos. Even looking back now, I think, I was really proud of what I achieved and the way that we got there. And it was relatively painless getting there. Yeah. I just struggled from then on to ever really get past that point. I could kind of get around there, and those making the adjustments is the difficult part for me. I was in a great place. And then when you try and kick on and you don't really know what you're doing, that's when it becomes very difficult. Should I remove some food here? Should I train more here? Should I add some food here? Or should I give it another 3 weeks? And you go from being in a great place to spinning your wheels and trying too many things. And instead of sticking with whatever it is, I don't think it really matters to a degree what you stick with, provided you stick with it enough to know that it does or doesn't work. But jumping around doesn't help. And that's kind of where I found myself.
Yeah, I want to apologize, actually. At that time, so there are 2 things here. I should have made it clear that if you were struggling, my inbox was always open to you, number one, and I didn't. And number two, I also made a mistake in my thought process as a coach at that time. It was great for marketing, but I was mistaken in that I thought that I could teach people what they needed to know in 12 weeks, and I only sold a 12-week block of coaching, and that was it. There was no possibility of extensions. And it's simply not the case. It's more of a fantasy than reality because the habits can take more time to set. Yes, some people can get in tremendous shape as you did, but there is then this, okay, well, what is next? And as much as I can write that down in a detailed email for people to guide them forward, honestly, it can be way better to guide them through. And if I look at now that since the end of 2015, I had a reset at the start of 2015, and I stopped coaching for about 8-9 months. People who have been following for a while may remember that. And I reset things, and then I decided that we'd just go monthly from then on. And then if I look at the retention over the last 4 years, clients stay on for, I think it's 10.8 months on average. I was just doing the math the other day. And that tells me that people really benefit and want to have that longer term support. And it's certainly not because we're holding anything back or making them feel that they need us.
I certainly didn't feel like you were holding anything back, and I didn't feel let down in any way. I felt like I'd been given a fantastic base with which to work from. And I also think that it didn't feel to me like you were ever close. I've emailed you a couple of times over the years, and you've always come back to me. I didn't feel like I was, I don't want to say cut off, but I didn't feel like there wasn't any option to come back to you and ask you a question if I ever needed to, because you've always been there. But I think I had a great base. I think that foundation that was put in place over those 12 weeks was a really, really great starting place. And I knew that I had that idea, the way that I've always explained it to other people when they've said, well, why do you need to ever work with anybody? You look all right, you're in good shape. And it's those...
Well, you're often your biggest guy in the gym, aren't you? I would imagine. Not every gym, but
certainly, in my circle of friends and at work and those areas, then and people don't seem to understand that everybody needs a coach, I think, I would suggest, because you can't see what you need to do yourself. Often I can give advice to people all day long, but when it comes to you, it's more difficult to stick to your own advice, isn't it? So, as I'm sure everyone knows, and
So after that point in time, did you struggle to hold on to that level of leanness, or was it you were unsure about how to then progress from there into a bulk phase, or what was it that was missing?
I think I had an idea of how to progress, and I certainly know that at the very end of our coaching time, you gave me some ideas of what to do. So I added in 25, 50 grams of carbs, worked that for a bit, felt good, looked a bit fuller, progressed. As time goes on and you don't see any marked improvements either in physique or performance, or even just in the way that you feel in your day-to-day life, sleep, must need to add more food in. So you add more food in, and then you feel great again for another couple of weeks, and maybe your lifts do go up again, but you probably you didn't need to add that food, and you needed to wait, or you needed to change something else. The only kind of tool that I had in my bag was going back to the cupboard, was more food, because that was the way that I thought that you did things, really. And so that's what's held me back. So I've always added in bits of food, now I'm a bit sloppy. I'll cut bits of food back out, and I just seem to be in the space between those two areas, and I've never been able to get past either of them. I've never been able to get really big, where people have ever said to me, oh, you've really put some size on, you've really gained some muscle, or I think to myself, I'm getting much stronger. And I've never been able to get down to those levels of leanness, but I see it, I'm still doing the right things, but just not achieving those results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Would it be fair to say that feelings, and included in this is how you're looking at yourself in the mirror, your feelings of hunger, your feelings of fatigue, your feelings around your performance, and perhaps your performance metrics as well, were the guiding light for the nutrition adjustments that you were making, rather than the weight data and looking at the trends in that fairly objectively?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I still weigh all my food, and I have done all the way through, and I still weigh myself. But I see it as I've got my data, my own data, and that's not enough of a sample size for me to make an informed decision on. It probably should be, but I don't think that it is. So when things aren't moving as I think they should be, I'm like, oh, I'm obviously not reading this correctly. I better change something.
Yeah, it's very tricky. It makes me think that I should really create a video series showing me going over the data plots of people who are going through bulking phases. I can do this for cutting phases as well. I just think it's far more difficult when you're trying to monitor bulking phases. So that way people do get to have that kind of secondhand exposure to more data sets, what looks normal and what I'm seeing, so that then they can apply it to themselves. Because otherwise there is this big question that we can have in our minds of, does this look right?
Exactly, yeah. And that's the way that I explain it to people, that I would say that when you do it on your own, you only got yourself. When you go to a coach, they have thousands of data points and they can look at the information you're given. They can say, no, this is what happens. You need to do this. And it's informed over a very, very large sample size. Whereas when it's just yourself looking at your numbers going, I just add some food in.
Yeah. Okay. So you're now about 220 pounds.
Yes.
So that's 33-ish, 34-ish pounds heavier than you were at your very leanest. We're now 14 years on, so you're 50
this year.
Is that correct? Yeah, great. Okay. When's
I
the
just had
birthday?
it in March, so it's gone 3 months in.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And everything falling apart yet?
Well, some bits have fallen apart, yeah. Yeah. But
no,
yeah,
true. We can
yeah.
get to that in a moment. You said, I'll quote you here, Vanity struck the other day when someone asked if I still worked
Yeah, that was pretty
out.
awful. Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I mean,
Tell me.
when you are doing everything that you can to be in good shape, look after yourself, eat properly, don't drink, don't go out, and people are looking at you like you don't do any of those things. It was almost, I mean, I said vanity, it was almost embarrassment. The fact that I'm putting so much effort in and I don't appear from the outside to be getting anywhere. Now, it's not, I'm not doing it. And that's the dichotomy of it, I suppose. It isn't done for other people, but if somebody else can't see that it's happening, then the changes that I think I'm making maybe aren't being made.
So this is super interesting. So this was one person's comment, and I'd be willing to bet that if you were to ask 50 people on the street, like far more people would say that you work out than would question if you did.
Yes.
However, this one person's comment has really stuck with you, right? And then there's also the thing to bear in mind as well. When was this comment?
Not very long ago.
Okay. So we're just coming out of, we're going into, were you wearing a sweater by any chance?
Yeah.
Or a loose t-shirt? Yeah, you were. Yeah, okay. So then if they've seen you before in summer clothes, because you're in New Zealand now, that's just for context for people. Scott lives in New Zealand, although he's English. Derby. Beautiful Derby.
It's lovely.
It actually is, yeah. And and New Zealand obviously is tremendously beautiful as well. But if this person may simply be used to how you look in a t-shirt and they see these ridiculous forearms, and then they've just seen you in a fairly loose sweater with a beard that I don't know how long you've had that, and they're just like, oh, are you still working out? And it was just an innocent comment, but bam, it hits you like a ton of bricks. I've had that myself.
That's right. Yeah. Like you say, it's probably just a throwaway line for them, a conversation starter, but then that becomes my focus. Oh, do I look skinny? Do I look what?
You don't look skinny.
I'm very close to the camera.
And what about your belly?
No, I don't have a belly. No,
I didn't think so at all.
I mean,
right,
I think that was the thing that I found that annoyed me, was that I still am in quite good shape for where I am.
Yeah.
So the fact that if I was sloppy and I'd not been looking after myself and things had gone a bit wrong, then I could maybe understand that. And that might be, a kick up the arse type thing, but that's not where I felt I was, I thought, oh, you're actually doing all right. So then to get a comment where you think you're all right, maybe you're wrong.
Yeah, I just think that person was wrong and not to worry about it. It's like, when you've got, well, everyone here has got a mum or female relative, or your mum's not necessarily on Instagram, or daughter, everyone listening, wife, right? They've put something on social media and some asshat has made a snarky comment about some way that they look. We've all seen it of someone that we care about, right? Or you've seen it in others, right? And it's just totally unnecessary. But people will say these things and they're either trying to make a jibe or they're just completely insensitive. And we know, we can look at that from the outside and just be like, oh, they're just an asshole. But to that person, like, it takes them a while to get over it, if they even do, and they may hold on to it for a long time. And I think in this case, it's just the person was just a throwaway comment. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you here as evidence for why I think this is total nonsense. So you are, 30-ish, 5 pounds heavier. You are pulling more for your deadlift, although now it's trap bar deadlift, I assume, because that feels better on your back, or maybe that's what you got access to. So it's,
Yeah, both. And I'm at home, so it's just more easy to do it, or easier to do at home.
Great. So you're doing 200 kilo for reps, trap bar deadlifts. You were doing 190 on conventional. This is 14 years ago. You're also still squatting around 140. Sorry, these numbers are about 305 pounds and about 440 pounds. You're still strong as hell, equally strong. And this does suggest to me that you have around the same level of muscle mass.
Yep.
So the shredded Scott can absolutely come out. What interests me here is, though, you've been through quite a lot over the last 6 years with your health. Are you okay to share what happened and how that affected you physically? Because I imagine your weight, your strength hasn't always been kept.
I found in 2019, I found a lump under my arm, and my parents were over in New Zealand at the time visiting my wife and my family over here. And we went out for dinner and I whispered to my wife, I found a lump under my arm. And my dad overheard. What was that? I said, oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. And he said, no, he pushed it. And so I said, I found a lump, and he made me go to the doctor the next day. So I had a biopsy, and in December 2019, I found out that I had follicular lymphoma, which is like a cancer of the blood, which was a bit of a shock. Obviously, I didn't have any symptoms other than a lump under my arm. I had no symptoms in any other way. I felt fine. Everything was good. I was training, eating, good, working. And then over the next 2.5 years, I actually wrote the date down so that we knew. So until May 2022, I started to get stomach cramps. So I started chemo September of 2022, a 6-week course of chemo. So every month, but I was really sick, nauseous the whole way through. So it was quite difficult. I struggled. I couldn't go to work. I'd work for a week and have 3 weeks off, have my chemo, have 3 weeks off, back to work for a week. So that carried on for 6 months. And at the end of those 6 months, my stomach cramp got much worse. So what had happened, I had a tumor in my stomach that was pushing against one of the big veins that runs through the center of your body there. So they couldn't biopsy that tumor because it was too dangerous for them to get near it. So I spent a week in hospital on a few drugs. That was a pretty rough time. And so we changed the chemo to a different sort. So I ran another course of that. I ran two sessions of that. Then they changed the chemo again because that wasn't working. But ultimately, I ended up running 3 different sorts of chemo, which culminated in having to have a stem cell transplant, a bone marrow transplant. So that was in June 2023. It's called a beam autograft. So 3 weeks in hospital, more chemo. And they stick a tube into your neck and suck out your stem cells, spin them, give you the chemo, which in theory kills hopefully the cancer within your blood, bone marrow. And then as you're recovering, they then give you your stem cells back. The idea being that your stem cells know what to do when they're in your blood. So they can help you get better, really. So 3 weeks in hospital, came out of hospital a month later, and then had 4 weeks of radiotherapy. So that was every day. So that was quite draining again. I was off work all of this time, going back in for a day here, a few days there. So the best part of 15 months off work. Yeah, felt pretty rough. I mean, I've got fantastic support. My wife was unbelievable. She did and does, and always has done everything for me. And without her, it would have been impossible. She was great. And also the guys at work, I work for Air New Zealand. They were happy for me to be off, come back when you need to. I also ran out of money during that time off because of my sick leave and pay rate, and all the guys at work gave me their sick leave and looked after me like that. I mean, without that, I would have needed to move house. It's as simple as that, really. So that was great. That was fantastic. And then, so from then, I just looked. So from October 23, I've been back at work full time. So 18 months now. But when I was having the stem cell transplant, I was having to shower in shifts. I couldn't complete a shower. I couldn't stand up for long enough to have a shower. So to go from being as fit as I was to not being able to get dressed, I couldn't get off the couch. I was nauseous for the whole 15, 16 months, really. So I spent nearly all of that time lying down. And some people are like that. I was one of those. My dad had a treatment of cancer many years ago. He didn't have any nausea. So you get what you get. And that's what I got. But
Well,
go on.
Sorry, yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
No,
No,
interrupt you
that's
there.
right. And no hair. But that's why I've got
No hair, as in like you lost it, or you managed to keep it?
Yeah. So the hair went, came back very, very sparsely. Yeah. So that's a legacy effect of that. But now I'm much better. Still trying to work my way back to where I was. I think, as I said to you in the email that I sent to you, I think I've got it left in me to do something good, but I'm starting from a very different place.
Oh, for sure. I bet there's a lot of gratitude in having your health now, because from what you've written here, it says that it's manageable and it's going to be manageable. So you'll be able to live, all being well, for many
I think
years
so.
to come.
Yeah. I mean, I go every 6 months, I take my bloods, and I have to feel around for lumps. It's a lymphoma, so it's affecting lymph system. So just feel around, make sure you don't have any lumps. If you don't, you carry on as normal. If you do, then worry about that when we get there. But as it's explained to me, and as I understand it, should be okay to carry on. It's not something that at the moment that they can eradicate, but you can manage it and you can live with it. Yeah.
Do you know how your weight changed at that time?
I gained 10 kilos because I couldn't move.
You actually gained 22 pounds. I'd imagined in my mind you would, because you were bedbound, you'd
gained weight.
Lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, they were very surprised. Not many people gain weight on chemo, but because I'd always managed my food intake and worked out and been fit and healthy, lying down and I could only eat beans on toast and anything that I could stomach, because it was difficult to eat, the food I'd normally eat. So yeah, that being sedentary for that length of time, 10 kilos.
Wow.
Yeah.
That would have helped you retain some muscle mass, but you would have lost a fair amount, I would imagine. It's going to be difficult to quantify that, though. How was your strength when you were finally through with the chemo and the radiotherapy and were able to get back in the gym?
Very, very, very weak. But for a long time as well. I finished the chemo, and then I went to England to see my folks in March of 24, and went to the gym with my cousin, who was a fit young lad, 24, and
Yeah.
I really struggled in that. I mean, I've always been the big, fit, strong uncle, and I wanted
Yeah.
to go and show off a little bit, so try and show off, and I was hanging on by a thread, and I even had to sit down towards the end of that workout, which was hard to do because it was just difficult, even a year later. So yeah, the strength was very, very slow to come back. I think those numbers that you mentioned before, I have done more than that. I think I got up to 235 kilos from my deadlift for 4 reps. That was when I was doing well. But I've
Nice. That's damn close to
Yeah.
500 pounds.
but
Very
I'm
nice,
I'm
yeah.
not there now. But I am coming back and feeling like I can come back. And I can work out normally. But I certainly don't feel like it's holding me back anymore. I feel I'm past that stage.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
I mean, I wouldn't want to do it again. If I'm very honest, I didn't enjoy it, but it was okay for me. When you're doing something, when it's you, it's all right. It's everybody else that struggles with it. Like my wife was worried all day, every day. I think I always knew that I would be all right. I think I knew. That's what I felt like. I felt like I'll get through this, but it's your family that love you and care about you, that worry about you, that have the real tough time. I was always okay, but I think I was okay, but I would have struggled. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Yeah. Or your colleagues.
Yeah, they
in
were
New Zealand who came through,
fantastic. Yeah.
Mm.
That would have changed my life even more so. If I'd have been having chemotherapy and then had to move house at the same time, and I don't even know how I would have done it because I didn't have any money coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now
Yeah.
you're close to your previous best in terms of strength.
Yeah.
This is a good indication of muscle size. So you've still got this tremendous base that you had in your 30s. You're cleared to train,
Yeah.
I assume, and to be in a calorie deficit. Yeah. Okay. Where is it that you want to go from here? Do you want to lean out? Do you want to chase that previous best deadlift? Which is the priority for you?
I think the priority for me is to get into very, very lean condition. That's where I'd like to be, because I'm not sure. I do have a shoulder issue that I'm managing at the moment. I've got bursitis in my shoulder that I've seen a shoulder specialist about. I actually have an ultrasound guided injection in 2 or 3 weeks coming up. So there is a bit of an issue in that shoulder.
Okay.
So maybe my days of hitting those big numbers and lifetime best numbers probably is a good idea to not chase those. Don't want to write them off, but they're not the priority. I think the priority is to get physically into better shape. Yeah, and try and, if I can get somewhere close to where I was in my 30s, like you said.
Let's put a pin in the diet stuff. We'll come back to that very quickly. I just want to ask you about the shoulder issue. How are you training around that? What's the plan been there?
Well, the plan is that I really struggled to bench, so I don't. I can use dumbbells, no problem. I've got a rack at home with cables, so I press on the cables. Yeah, that's really good. And when you're at home, you can have the bench set up in front and you can have it set up. I know exactly where it needs to go. Works really well for me. I'm not holding anybody up, and I can press in exactly the plane that I need to. So it holds me back in terms of exercise selection, but I can obviously choose different exercises and it's not too bad. Yeah, as long as I wouldn't go outside and throw a ball. It's bad. I don't like washing up either. Washing up's pretty bad. That circular pressing down motion, that's pretty bad. But I can work around it in the gym. I've had 2 weeks off having seen him just to rest it and get ready for this injection. But I don't think that it's a long-term issue. He seems to think that it's manageable and we can sort it out with an injection. So yeah.
Excellent. I'm glad that you said that. And the way that you've worked around it is exactly how I would suggest people try working around it. So you can't do the bench. I assume you tried to modify your grip. You tried to modify the angle to the extent that you can.
I bought a multi-bar.
You then maybe tried. Okay. Multi-bar. Yep.
No good.
That didn't. No. And you ended up going with dumbbells. Dumbbells are often a good choice because they just allow us to change this path of motion. on, well, both sides can work independently there. Also with the cables, what you've done is you've not been dogmatic about exercise selection, which I know a lot of us can be, because for many of us, especially those who've lifted for a while, that how much do you bench comment, right? It sticks with you and you want to have it, you want to keep it, but sometimes the shoulders, elbows, whatever it is, just can't take it. And we have to make a change and we hold on to the bench or whatever exercise it is for a little bit too long.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think as long as you are putting the effort in and working that muscle, you can feel that muscle, then I don't think it matters what you're holding on to, where you're sitting.
Exactly right. Yeah. Okay, now let's come back to the diet. So you've said, I think my days have been massive, quote unquote massive, are probably behind me. No, okay, it's all relative. Like you have, it's all relative. But being super lean and feeling great are absolutely possible. I 100% agree with that. I've done both, but not really at the same time. Lean, ate more, felt better, went too fast, not lean. What is it that you believe you need to do right now, but are struggling to do in order to lean out? I know you know about calories. I know you know about macros. Tell me.
I think, as I talked about earlier on, I think it is just those fine adjustments. I weigh my food. I couldn't tell you exactly how many calories I'm eating, but I'm eating, my breakfast is weighed out. I eat this. I eat that for lunch. It's all measured. It's all weighed. It's all the right type of stuff. And then when I want to start leaning out, I remove a portion of carbs from each meal, 50 or so, leave that, carry on. And that is my strategy. And that is my only strategy. So, like I said, when that doesn't work and that doesn't elicit the changes that I expect it to, I don't really know where to go or what to do. So you hang around for a bit and then you just think, well, I may as well add them back in.
Okay. You hang around a bit, but you are leaner, right? At that point.
Well, I mean, maybe, but not to the degree where I would, well, certainly not to the degree I'd want to be, but also not to the degree that I would expect, because I'm pretty sure that that's the right thing to do.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay, there's two things I'm hearing here, but the main thing is that you're not tracking. It doesn't sound to me like you're tracking your measurements.
On my body? No.
Yeah. No. Okay. So what I want you to do is get one of those retractable tapes.
Yeah.
Take body measurements along with your weight. You're weighing yourself every day in the morning anyway. Plot that trend and then just see how the two change, and know that there will be periods of 2 to 3-ish weeks that your weight may stay the same. This is just a scale effing with your head, right? Because she's a little bee like that, right? She likes to F with our heads. Yeah. You must not break to her cheeky little whims, right? And you must just stay confident in what we're doing. Why can we be confident? Okay. We know that our metabolisms slowly adapt. They ramp down a little as we diet, just as they kind of ramp up a little as we come out of a diet phase, right? However, metabolisms or metabolic rate, our needs, our energy needs do not suddenly crater to the point where we have had consistent fat loss and then it suddenly ends. Let's put some numbers on this. If you're losing a pound, for you, half a kilo, if you're losing a pound per week steadily, and then all of a sudden it stops, and yet your step counts are the same, so your activity levels are the same. Your phone probably logs this. If your food intake hasn't changed, then we know that you are still losing fat. It's just your body is holding on to some water, and so the weight isn't changing, or gut content glycogen. We know that that's happening, but it's very difficult to deal with mentally, and it erodes our confidence in the process.
That is where I would get to, and I would take out more food.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah. And the method that you've described there, frankly, that is how every bodybuilder ever got shredded. And until, when was it? We were actually able to count calories more accurately with foods. right? They would add in portions of carbs or take away portions of carbs. And it could literally be, okay, well, I've stopped gaining weight during my bulk. I'm going to add another fistful of carbs. Or I've stopped leaning out. I'm going to remove another fistful of carbs from my meals. And it would be as simple as that. Now, of course, back in the day, they'd be eating like 6 or 7 meals. So it might be a fistful of carbs from 3 of those meals, right? Rather than all 7. But still, the point still stands. So if your meals are consistent, I think that's totally a fine way to go. But you do need to be tracking all of that data and having the measurements. Sometimes you will notice yourself leaning out, even though the weight is staying the same. And really, we're looking for one point of confirmation that things are going in the right direction, not one point of confirmation that things aren't, and then reacting to that. And the other thing I'd say to you is, given that you're weighing your food anyway and you're in that habit, I would consider logging your calories and your macros and just getting a nutrition logging app, because it's not going to be much more effort, and it may actually be less when you're just tapping, quickly selecting like your pre-entered meals, because then it's going to remove that level of uncertainty and guesswork that you maybe have in your mind when things do stop and you're like, oh, wait, have my carb portions been a bit bigger than I thought recently? Like, what about that? I know we're not really peanut butter people, us Brits, but what, was that spoon of peanut butter, has that gradually gotten larger? Or what about the oil that I've been putting in a pan? I wasn't, these doubts can then creep in, and that just helps you remove all doubt.
Yeah. I mean, I am pretty fastidious with those measurements, and I don't chuck extra stuff in, but I concede that could happen. I just don't think it happens to me. But it's like you said about, and I remember, like you mentioned that to me, I remember that we did used to do that 14 years ago. We took those measurements, and that was a large part of it. And I haven't done that since. So, like, as you said, you can be still losing fat, but nothing's moving. But maybe some things are moving. But if you don't check them, you don't know, do you?
Once a week, not every day, just to make it super easy for yourself, a self-tightening tape. And that's just going to remove doubts.
I still have the same one.
Another thing that... Yeah, you do? Yeah, okay, great. Another thing that you can do, I've got 30 in my cupboard just there, because when I've done presentations, I'll actually have people, I'll pass them out and have people stand up and kind of practice and show them what they're looking for. Anyway, I digress. Another thing that you could potentially do, because you don't have the experience of looking at the kind of raw data that we do as coaches, you could consider using MacroFactor to log your weight, and it will show you the trend line from the kind of the spikes, the peaks and troughs that you get there. It is a paid app, but if you did want to give that a go, use the code RIPPED, and then that'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial instead of 1. So you may like it, you may not, but just totally up to you there. How confident are you feeling right now about moving forward, honestly?
More confident. I really do think that I can get there. I did need a bit of a pep talk, I think, because I've got an idea. When I've worked with somebody, I've got into good shape. When I've done it on my own, I haven't got into good shape. So I think there's maybe a bit of that in the background where I think, well, I'm probably spinning my wheels anyway. So that outside set of eyes has always worked really well for me. And I'm sure that's the same as a lot of people. I don't know if it's necessary for everybody, but I feel it is for me. But I'm certainly in a position after talking to you, knowing that there's a few more places I can go to instead of just scale weight and a fistful of potatoes, which is pretty much all I've been utilizing for however long, Yeah,
absolutely. You make a very good point there about accountability and being held to something, being held to some standard or something outside of just your motivation on any given day. So I wonder what we could do to help figure that out for you. Obviously, coaching is one thing, but let's set that aside, right? I imagine you are very good at not wanting to let people down. Yeah. So I tell you where my mind immediately went to, and I think it jumped to something that you may write off as silly, but let's start at the silly and we can always backtrack from there. I like going to kind of brainstorming at the extremes, because then that can often open up possibilities in the middle that we wouldn't have otherwise thought of. And so one thing I thought of was something that I haven't done for a long time, but you know, when people like do a race and raise money for a charity, I wonder whether you could do a diet, state it publicly, collect money for charity and say, I'm going to be shredded by X. And people, you know, where they'll pay you like £1 for every pound lost or something like that, right? I wonder whether there's something in that and you could do an office collection. Not that you want to impose, but it could just be to fund like some kind of cancer treatment, not your cancer treatment, sorry, cancer research, or, you know, something. Is there something around that where you're making it public, you're making it about a larger purpose than yourself, where it really puts a fire under you? And I'm saying this assuming that you are not under a lot of stress right now where this could just, you know, just not be a good thing.
This isn't a bad time. This is a great time to try and make those changes. And I know that when I did a competition, I think just before we worked together, maybe. Yeah. And that's in the earlier days of Facebook. And so when you put that post on there, I'm going to be competing on this day, then that you have to compete on that day, don't you? That sets those wheels in motion. So that certainly worked for me then. So it's not a completely outlandish idea, a sponsored shred now. I'd have to think about it.
Sponsored shred. It doesn't have to be sponsored if you find the idea of asking for money awkward. I know I certainly would.
It's more but like you said, the accountability is the key part of it, I think. Similar to having a coach, isn't it? Somebody asking you on a regular, semi-regular basis, are you still doing, not are you working out, but are you still losing weight? How much weight did you lose this week? That kind of ongoing dialogue.
Yeah. Did you, if we break it down as simple as possible, Scott, did you do the things that we agreed that you would do this week?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To which you have to be in a position to say yes to, don't you? You don't want to be not able to say yes to that question.
Ideally, but if you say no, it's an honest no, and it's a no because of, and then we can troubleshoot that. So I want everyone in your, I assume people at work know, would you feel comfortable posting publicly about your transformation that you're going to do, even if you weren't collecting money, putting it on Facebook?
I don't know. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. Right? And it's something that I don't really do. I mean, I haven't used that type of social media in that way for a long time. I don't want to say no, but it's probably no, but not for any reason other than I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, sure. You're a typical English bloke, right? Why would you want the attention? Yeah. I get it. Another thought that popped in my head was, you've just been very brave and jumped on this call and you have shared your journey here. There are going to be people who are feeling quite inspired by this. And I know that may not have, well, the thing is, people can get inspired also by contrasts. So maybe someone's going through a shitty situation, but then they can listen to yours and they're like, oh, wow. I mean, I'm not, at least I didn't have to go through what Scott did. And they can be like, okay, well, if Scott could do it and he could come back, then I can come back. Hell yeah. And then you're now about to go through something again, which is tough, but far less tough. And I think that you talking about your journey here is not only going to inspire people. I wonder whether you talking about what you're about to do would then, and what you've been through, would inspire other people as well.
That part of,
so I think
that part would be really good for somebody that has been in this situation, maybe has been sick, can see that you can come out the other side and still be fit, strong, healthy, and get where you want to get to.
So then, instead of being public, a semi-public option, are there any cancer support groups, message boards or something? It could be something specific to New Zealand or local that you could maybe talk about this and share. And you could then just be hitting on those people who kind of need it or may need it.
It's an idea. I actually don't know. I mean, I haven't really had anything to do with those groups, if you like, because I do feel, or I did, to be honest, now I don't really feel like how can I word it without sounding rude? I feel like I've dealt with it and I've moved past it. And I wasn't expecting to not be sure how to explain it, but I always felt like those people, everyone was really, really supportive at the hospital and the Cancer Society, and they were always getting hold of me. And I didn't really engage with those groups. I don't really know why, but I would feel a bit disingenuous about trying to do something for them.
Sure.
Because
that makes sense. You didn't feel that you needed it, and therefore it's not your group.
And I feel like
you're not one of them.
That's right. And I feel like if I did something, I would be saying, "Look at me, look how well I'm doing," and I'm not.
Yep, totally makes sense.
But
yep,
everybody that helped me was fantastic. I feel like I kind of tried to keep out of the way, so I wouldn't feel right about doing something off the back of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's have this seed that we've planted of the accountability piece. Let's just let that germinate, and let's see where it goes over the next week, because I think you'll come up with some kind of idea of how you will be able to keep yourself accountable when things get tough, which I think is not going to be for the first 15 pounds. I think it's going to be for the 10 pounds after that.
Yeah. I don't want to sound like I was being dismissive of the ideas. That was not my intention, but
No, not at all. Honesty is important, because I think sometimes people, they jump to saying yes, and then they haven't followed through because they felt awkward about raising the objection. So I appreciate
I'm very
that.
keen to,
Yeah. I don't take it personally at all.
I'm very keen to not promise something that I know that I can't deliver, I do have my sister and my cousin are coming here on their holiday in January of next year. So I've got 6 or 7 months. I mean, it's a great target. Gives me plenty of time to work towards getting into that kind of shape and not being embarrassed in the gym the next time.
No, for sure. No, I like that. I definitely like that. You could tell that you said your cousin, right? Who you were in the gym with last time, and you felt a little...
My nephew, but
nephew, sorry. Yeah. You said cousin, I think, and then you said uncle after. And
what's he on about?
Might want to go get another test, Scott. I think telling him that, all right, I'm back, and I'm going to be really back by the time you come. So bring your A game, and just some like little banter back and forth, uncle to nephew, over the next few months. I think that could be quite powerful, and just as simple
that works
as
well
that.
For me, I think. Yeah.
Scott, I appreciate you sharing. Could you promise to send me an email come January, showing me your progress?
Absolutely. No problem.
I look forward to seeing it. And I think if you're open to it, you don't have to decide now, but if you're open to it at that time, I think people would love to see a before, after, if that makes sense. Showing yourself over the years, I think that would be just a really nice way to kind of tie a bow in this picture that many people who've been on the website have kind of seen over the years, because lots of people click the results page, don't they? So,
they do. That's right. And to be honest, a long time ago, I did have a lot of positive feedback from the first work that we did together. People contact me, for a long time afterwards. So people do like to see that kind of thing, and I can definitely do that. I've got those photos. I can take some photos again now, 6 months time, and we can see the whole journey right the way through. I was going to say start to finish, not finish.
Oh, if you're up for it, then all right, great. That's the deal.
All right.
In 6 months, I will check in and I will share.
All right. Sounds good.
Yeah. So the people listening are now expecting as well. So you got your nephew, and we got me and the listeners.
There's the accountability. So,
there we go.
Awesome.
I'm
Thanks,
excited.
Andy.
I appreciate you being so open. Thank you for everything, Scott. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been awesome. It's really been nice to talk to you. It's been nice to say those things out loud. Everything that I've done throughout these 14 years has come back to you. I've mentioned you. You can do a lot of name checks over the years, and it's fantastic to have spent this hour with you. It's been awesome. Thank you, mate.
Most appreciated. I couldn't do what I do, which is what I love, without people like yourself. So
brilliant.
Thanks. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment if you have a question or just words of encouragement for Scott. That's in the YouTube, obviously, and subscribe. And if you're interested in coaching, please go to ripbody.com/coaching. Click the button there, and I would love to see how we can help. Thank you.